Hello again from Kampala in Uganda. My name is Becky and I'm a missionary here in this wonderful country with Mission Aviation Fellowship. Last week I decided to try something that I've never been altogether good at, and that was fasting. The New Testament, it doesn't actually specifically command Christians to fast, but it can be an incredibly helpful practice for us. There wasn't a particular reason this time that I decided to go without food. It wasn't a few days of in-depth confession for some particular sin. It wasn't for a particular purpose to petition God for anything other than maybe seeking a little bit of direction as to what next for some projects that I'm considering. There wasn't any one thing. It was just more of an opportunity to make God and to make my relationship with God the most important priority in my life for a few days. When Jesus spoke about fasting in Matthew chapter 6, he didn't offer advice for if you fast, if you choose to fast one day. He specifically said when you fast. It's a discipline that's really, really quite important. And yet I've found that we tend not to talk about it all that often, certainly not as much as the importance of prayer and Bible study and those other really good disciplines of the Christian faith. So I just thought that I would take a few minutes and share some of my own experiences with you today to hopefully encourage you in this area, or maybe challenge you to think about doing a little bit of fasting yourself. So my fast last week, it lasted for 3.5 days, and I only drank water in that time. Before it started, I expected it to be hard. I think it's probably the longest water-only fast that I've ever done in my whole life. But I didn't quite expect it to be as hard as it was. I think there's part of me thought that as soon as I started, as soon as I went without food for the purpose of knowing God more, that I would slip into this super holy state where I didn't even have any desire for food whatsoever, and it would be really easy and I'd be full of energy and it would be effortless. I certainly didn't imagine kind of dropping off to sleep, salivating at the thought of different foods dancing through my brain. I didn't expect my body to complain with some pretty bad headaches actually, and some stomach pain as my body weaned me off caffeine and sugar. It was harder than I thought it would be. I think I have a newfound respect for that passage where King Saul's son Jonathan is fighting and he tastes that bit of honey from the ground and his eyes brighten because just even a taste of honey. It was, yes. I'm not selling it here, am I? It was genuinely a difficult few days. And yet, do you know what? I am so glad that I did it. I'm already seeing some of the lessons that I learned in those few days at use in my normal everyday life. See, firstly, that short little fast, it taught me to go to God in any moment of weakness. In this case, physical weakness, but it's a lesson that can be applied to any moment where we simply don't feel strong enough to get through the day. Isaiah chapter 40, verses 29 to 31 tells us that he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. I was tempted to give up on the very first day. But I found that as I put my hope in the Lord and as I brought everything to him, that I could carry on and push through, even though it was uncomfortable and even though it was difficult. See, God didn't make it any easier for me. I didn't go to him and pray and suddenly it was ridiculously easy to carry on. What he did was give me the strength that I needed to push through those difficulties. He didn't make the situation easier, but he made my capacity greater. If that's the case for just going without food for a few days, and how much more so in every single area of our lives where we might struggle. So secondly, I found myself starting to live with more of a perpetual awareness of God's presence. In Joshua chapter 1, verse 9, this is what God said to Joshua. He said, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Wherever you go, God is with you. I think, we all know little verses like that, don't we? Which assure us that, nothing can separate us from the love of God. Neither height nor depth, nothing at all can separate us from his love. And yet we put those things out of our minds, I think, when we go about our day-to-day lives. Sometimes it's only when we get right to the end of the day that we realize that we haven't really invited God into anything that we've done in that day at all. For me, fasting was like a fresh awareness of God with me. Probably because I was struggling so much with not reaching for something to eat that I was kind of forced to rely on him that little bit more. But what I've found is that doesn't go away when the fast ends. It's not God will be with you wherever you go as long as you are fasting. That verse is true always. Fasting just gave me an enhanced awareness of it, of the truth of that statement. And I'm loving that already in just this 1 week, that in any struggle or difficulty or anything that I'm finding hard, my thoughts are more quickly turning to God rather than to, oh, this is tough, isn't it? How can I get myself out of this situation? And finally, this fast, it helped me to recognize the role of food within my own life. So often I think food can be something that we reach for and turn to when we're feeling sad or frustrated or even just bored. It can be a reward for something that we've done really well, or a refuge for something that we've done really badly. But that's an unhealthy relationship with what we eat. God is the one that I want to turn to in sadness or frustration or even boredom. It's his praise I would rather hear when I do something well, and it's his comfort that I would rather receive when things go really badly. It's a really important lesson to learn, I think, just to prioritize what's happening in our lives and where the place of food is on that order of what is important to us. If you've never given fasting a go, I'd really encourage you to try it. It's really interesting to do. I'll tell you that. Maybe start with just a day or even just a meal, but use it as an opportunity to carve out a little bit of space with God, just to prioritize time with him and see what lessons you learn through it, because I'm sure there'll probably be some things that are quite different to what I got out of that experience. Thank you so much again for watching with me, and until next time, have a great week.